Okay, welcome back. We are rejoined once again by Ashley Hayek. Her new book is called Beat the Elites. You can get it wherever books are sold, Amazon, your local bookstore, and you can check it out on the web at beattheelites.com. All right, so Ashley, I'm always curious as to how we got to this point. How did we allow the ruling class, the system across the board, to amass so much power to the point now where they control literally everything?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, I think we just didn't know, right? There was so much that we didn't know until we had a president, Donald J. Trump, who started to expose everything that was happening. And even still, looking back, I don't think he even knew how deep that swamp was when you look at the FBI or you look at what happened with Fauci and all of the COVID stuff. And so that was the first step in kind of opening our eyes and having that awakening. The second thing is, I think so many of us have just been trying to live our lives, raise our kids, start our business, work hard. And by not asking questions and taking things at face value has allowed the establishment to just continue to amass more and more power. And again, I think once you had that world shutdown where people had to look in and see what was happening, they really showed their hand. And maybe the establishment, maybe the elites just got really full of themselves and just started to kind of flaunt it more than thinking that we were just going to continue to take it. And now we're at a breaking point in our country where I think people are just completely done with the double standards that we are faced all the time. And especially when you saw in like Loudoun County in Northern Virginia, all the parents in the uprising, when you saw the transgender issues start to percolate, that was when you upset angry parents, now you're taking it to a whole new level. And I think that was ultimately the tipping point.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I think if there's any silver lining coming out of the horror show that was COVID and the lockdowns and all of the lies and deception that we were all subject to, it is the fact that we are more aware of these kinds of abuses of power, again, happening across the board on both sides of the aisle. You talk in the book, Beat the Elites, about a series of ways that the elites are really targeting us in order to turn us into like serfs, basically, and really upend our entire constitutional system where they are supposed to be working for us. Now it's been inverted where we are working for them and subject to being under the heel of their jackboot. You talk about how they divide us, how they impoverish us, how they are endangering us. And, three things really jump out at me, Ashley, and I'd love for you to address. And these all get to the very core of our national sovereignty, without which we don't have a country. So election integrity, right? So the rigging and walking off with elections, and our border, and the weaponization of government. So those three things are like the hallmarks of a tyrannical government that's completely out of control, that has no respect for you, and honestly doesn't care whether you live or die.
Yeah, the election integrity piece, people automatically will say, oh, you're an election denier. But you should have peace knowing that I have a voice, because at the end of the day, when you vote, that is your way to express your support or disdain for the current government system. It's your basic right. It's what makes our country absolutely amazing and great. And so by not being able to have that voice, it just undermines what our country is supposed to be founded upon. If you go back and look at what happened in 2020, they changed the rules. So call it cheating, call it not cheating. They fundamentally changed the rules so that it was harder for people to vote. So they made it so it was all mail-in. It made it very ripe for fraud. They're having cases of fraud. Right now at America's Policy Institute, they've identified some counties where there are more people that are registered to vote than actually live in the county. That's a problem. That's a major problem. There shouldn't be these issues, especially with the technology that we have today. And so, having that level of distrust in government is a huge issue. The other issue with the weaponization of government, we're seeing left and right. You have a Department of Justice that is going after President Biden's top political rival every single day, lawfare to the highest degree, keeping him tied up in the courts. And one of the things Donald Trump always said was, they're coming after you. I'm just in the way. And you're seeing it now. You're seeing the pro-life dad who was praying outside of the abortion center. You're seeing it with the 81-year-old Army veteran who was arrested for showing up at protests. You're seeing it with the parents at the school board meetings being targeted. You're seeing it with the Catholic Church. So it's across the board. They're going after anybody who is dissenting with their way of life or their philosophy. And until we unite together as Americans, like here's at the end of the day, like I may not agree with you. I may not agree with your philosophies, but I believe as an American, you have a right to say it. It's called free speech. And my husband did not go to war so that only I could speak. He did it so we can all have a conversation of ideas. And so anybody, regardless of your political affiliation, should agree that this is a horrific abuse by the government against the American people. And so now it's our opportunity to join together and push back on that.
Absolutely. And just in our final moment or two here, Ashley, it gets to a much bigger issue to me. And I talk about this all the time. Everything you describe in Beat the Elites is true, and you've done a brilliant job of deconstructing all of it. But it's all a symptom of a much bigger thing going on here, which is a Marxist revolution that the United States has been subjected to for almost a century now. This is why we are at the tipping point. Not because they started this last week or during COVID, but because they've been chipping away for a very long time. And you've got the elites, the ruling class, who have been more than happy to be foot soldiers in this revolution. So I want you in our last minute or so here, Ashley, to address something you talk about in the book, which to me is the core. And it is how the system, the elites, deprive us of God. Because the Marxists, one of the first things they do when they get power is ban God, because you're meant to worship the state. So can you talk a little bit about where we are in America in the deprivation of God and stripping God out of the public square?
Well, and they're not just stripping God out of the public square. But as we've seen recently, they put a satanic temple, in the Iowa legislature. Every single day, we see where they're trying to remove the Bible, faith, God from everything that we do. We are a Christian nation founded upon Christian values. And you see it across the board. And it was not intended when you talk about a separation of church and state. What the left is pointing to is, again, to your point, exactly, it's Marxism. They're trying to take God out of everything so that you are a loyal, dedicated soldier to their Marxist belief. Part of the reason I believe that we do have this border crisis is to allow people to fundamentally enter our country who don't share those same values. You look at what happened actually in Michigan, where you ended up with a whole school board. This actually backfired on them, of Muslim immigrants who then actually voted against the pride flags in their city. And so the Democrats were going crazy saying, you're supposed to support what we support. And they said, well, we're Muslim, we don't support this. So, you're seeing a religion, they want loyalty to them and to their platform, not to anything else, not to our God, not to Christianity, family values, biblical values. So that's something that ultimately we have to continue to fight for in our schools, in our country, in our laws, everywhere.
Absolutely. And this book is a great call to that kind of political arms by opening everybody's eyes to the reality of what we're seeing. They are at war. They wage this war 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they've been doing it for decades now. While our side has been out there, raising families, starting small businesses, building careers, going to church, they have been at war. And again, this is why we are so close to a very, very late hour in America. And your book is so terrific in breaking down how we got here and who these enemies within really are. Ashley, thank you so much. The book is called Beat the Elites. You can find it at beattheelites.com. Also, wherever you get your books. Really important book. Makes a great gift for the holiday season. So please go get it. Ashley Hayek, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You bet.
My name is Mark Lichtenfeld, best-selling author of Get Rich with Dividends and chief income strategist at the Oxford Club, one of the world's largest and most prominent financial firms, where over 250,000 readers receive my insights each week. I believe we're entering the greatest oil bull market since the 1970s. That's why I'm so excited to share this special oil and gas investment with you today. I've discovered an unusual way to potentially bank massive income from the oil and gas surge 100% outside the stock market. Oil and gas royalties are a backdoor way to get paid over and over again, and you can get into a top royalty stream for just $25. This is your chance to get the income you need to truly enjoy life, simply because you made the decision to give the Oxford Income Letter a risk-free try today. But this opportunity won't last forever.
To learn more about Mark Lichtenfeld's unusual approach to generating monthly income from the oil markets, please visit oilpayday.com. That's oilpayday.com. Paid for by the Oxford Club.